Hi, I'm Heidi with Onigo Stamping. Thank you for joining me. Many of you are seasoned stampers. You've made hundreds of cards and gifts and scrapbook pages already. But some of you might be brand new. Maybe you've never inked up a rubber stamp. Maybe you got a card in the mail and you thought, wow, that's so beautiful. I wonder how she does that. Or maybe you saw a picture on Pinterest or Instagram or something I posted on my Facebook group and you wondered, I wonder how she does that. It looks hard. I'm not sure I could actually do that. Well, don't worry. It's not that hard. Rubber stamping is actually quite simple. And today I'm going to talk about some of the basics: stamps, inks, and paper. I'm going to go through each of these and show you exactly how to get started in rubber stamping. At the end, I'm going to show you a very quick and easy project that you can do right from the beginning. And if you're a seasoned stamper, you might want to stick around too. Maybe you'll hear something new. So, as always, if you want help getting started in rubber stamping, if you want to know more than just what's in this video, if you need some personalized attention, please let me know. I'd be happy to help you. I always love to do in-person classes, one-on-one stamping if you happen to live in Michigan, or I'd be happy to do a party online with you and your friends, and you can have your own personalized videos and projects that you can watch. If any of this sounds interesting to you, please let me know. I'd love to help you. Just leave a message below or send me an email. All right, let's get started. Onigo, let's get stamping. To get started rubber stamping, you really only need three things: stamps, ink, and paper. Let's start by talking about stamps. Many of you may remember a traditional rubber stamp. It looks something like this. There's a wood block, usually with a label that shows what the image looks like. And on the other side, you have a red rubber stamp that is placed on top of a cushion. That's that little gray part here that you can see before being attached to the wood block. The cushion helps give you a nice even image with when you're stamping. These are great and can be used for a variety of different things and really are all you need to get started. However, the wood block does take up a lot of storage space. And so to make things store a little bit easier and have more space to have more stamps, many stamp companies have gotten rid of the wooden block. So let me show you what some of that looks like. Let's start with a traditional red rubber stamp. So here is the red rubber, and you can see it has all the same things. It has the red rubber and the cushion, and it has a label. But now, instead of having a wooden block, what you are going to do is you would attach this to a clear block. And it's kind of sticky on the back, so all you do is you just stick it right on there, and now you basically have the same thing as your wooden stamp, the traditional stamp, except that it's a clear block instead of wood. This way you can take the stamps off, just peel that right off, and you can put a different stamp on that same acrylic block. Really nice because now your storage space is only limited to about the size of a DVD case, which means you can store a lot more stamps in a smaller space than you could when you had to have a box big enough to accommodate the whole wood block. So that is a red rubber stamp, also known in the Stampin' Up! World as a cling stamp because it's so sticky. The other type of stamp is a photopolymer stamp, and this is a photopolymer stamp. Photopolymer stamps are clear, or after you use them for quite a while, they turn kind of this pinkish color, but they still work just fine. Photopolymer stamps don't have a cushion. So they're a little bit different than the other stamps because they don't have that cushion in there. But the stamp itself doesn't need it as much because it's a little bit smushier. Again, all you're going to do is you peel that right off the plastic, and then you go ahead and grab an acrylic block. And again, it just sticks right to that acrylic block so you can stamp, so you can ink that up and stamp it. That is what's called a photopolymer stamp. The nice thing about photopolymer stamps is that they are clear. So some stamping, you have more than one stamp to create an image. let me show you what a stamp like that looks like. This stamp set actually has 3 different stamps to create one image. So, whereas our Check You Out stamp set featured a bold stamp, where the image is just bold and you would probably ink this right up on the color ink you wanted to use, the To a Wild Rose stamp now has 3 different images. There's a bold background image, a bold stamp that creates more of the shading, and then there's an outline image. All 3 of these line up so that they can create one image. And you can see, again, because it's photopolymer, you can kind of see through there. So once you stamp it, you can look through at your paper and line those up just perfectly. So that's why the photopolymer stamps can be really nice. So let's look at what a couple of these stamp sets would look like if you got them brand new in the mail. Most importantly, we can talk about the cling stamp sets. So this is the red rubber stamp sets. When these come in the mail, you'll notice that there's a couple different pieces in here. There's a sheet of paper with the labels on them. And then there's that sheet of red rubber with those stamps right in it. And you can see they're just kind of stuck in there. The first thing you want to do is you can go ahead and punch out one of those stamps. So I just punched out a leaf. Okay, on the back here, there is a piece of paper, and you're going to peel that off. Oh, I will show you this. I'm going to grab my label stickers right here. And on the labels, you'll also notice that there's a piece of paper that you're going to peel off. You want to peel this off from the middle. If you try to do it from the outside edges, you are liable to pull off the whole label itself, and really you just want to take the paper off the back of the label. Oops, see there, I almost grabbed the whole label. I want to leave that in place for just a moment. And I just want to take off that background backing. So it's sitting there just like that. Now I'm going to take the back off my stamp itself. Okay, and this is a little sticky, and some people like to just put this directly on their stamp, and you can stamp just like that without having any label at all. However, I like to have the label there, and it's a little bit stickier and is going to keep it really stuck to your block a little bit better. So all you're going to do is you are going to take that stamp. So now you've taken off the paper off the back, you took the paper off the label, and you are very carefully, once the stamp hits the label, it's stuck forever. So you want to kind of be very careful to line that right up with that label. Push it down, and now you're going to peel it back, and it has that label right on it. And you can see I missed a little bit. I wasn't quite careful enough. But now that label is right on there. So now you can take it and put that on your acrylic block and be ready just to stamp with it. So those are how you're going to put the labels on your red rubber stamps, your cling stamps. And then I like to just keep that sheet of rubber right in there, and I just kind of tuck that back in there. It's not enough that it's really touching this back plastic, because if it touches the back plastic, it will stick to it, and this kind of keeps it from sticking to that and being able to kind of pull it out a little bit easier. When you get your photopolymer stamps, there's really nothing you have to do to them. They come just like this. This is how nice and clear they are when you first get them. And they're just kind of stuck between 2 layers of plastic. When you go to use them, you can pull off the top thinner layer and just use it just like that. I like to keep that thinner layer though and put it back on just to help keep the stamps nice and firmly stuck in place. So put that back in there. And like I said, like you saw on the Check You Out stamp set, eventually that photopolymer does get stained and it turns kind of pink, but it works just as well and isn't going to hurt your stamping image at all. The other thing to talk about is we talked about how there's a bold image. You can also have stamps like this one where there's more of a line image. So these you would want to stamp maybe in black and then color them in. Whereas these bold images you'd want to stamp in a color and you don't have to do any coloring at all. So those are the stamps. Let's talk about ink. Oops. The basic ink is our classic Stampin' Pad. The classic Stampin' Pad is a dye ink. It is water-based ink, so you can actually watercolor with it, and someday I will show you some techniques using that. But it is just a very simple, easy to use ink and ink pad. To open them, you just want to look at the end. There's kind of a finger hold spot there. You want to lift that end up, flip it over, and then slide it back into place. You will notice that this is a foam ink pad, so it's very squishy. And when you go to ink it up, you just want to tap your stamps on there very lightly because it's going to pick up that ink really easily. When you want to close it, again, just pull it at the end where there's kind of a spot to put your hand. Just pull that and then flip it over and snap it shut. So I'll show you that one more time. You want to find the end where there's a spot to put your finger, pull that up, flip it over, right? So pull it up, flip, and then push it into place. To close it, grab it at that end where there's a spot to put your finger, because it'll get all inky if you put it over here. Pull it back, flip it over, click it into place. Okay, so that is the classic Stampin' Pad. And then there are also sometimes stamps that are a pigment ink. So the Stampin' Up! Craft White ink is a pigment ink. And I'll open this up for you. And you'll see that this is a foam pad as well. So it's super squishy, but the ink is a little bit different. It's a pigment ink, so it's a permanent ink. It's not water-based. You can't really watercolor with it like you can with the classic Stampin' Pads. But with these, it is a permanent ink. So once it's dry, it's going to stay there. It's not going to run at all if it gets wet. And you can also emboss with it. Again, that's a topic for another day. The other thing is that when you stamp with it, it does take just a little bit longer to dry. With the classic Stampin' Pads, that dye ink is going to dry immediately. You're not going to have trouble with smudging it or anything. With your craft ink pads or your pigment ink pads, they do take a little bit longer to dry, so you have to be a little bit more careful when you're stamping with them. Another type of ink that we carry is the Memento ink pad. This is a dye-based ink like the classic Stampin' Pad that I showed you earlier, but it is permanent, water resistant. This is really good for using with our alcohol markers, the Stampin' Blends. This pad is a little bit different, and I'll open it up and show you. Instead of it being a foam pad like you saw on the other two ink pads, it's actually a felt or a linen pad. So this is, when you go to ink up your stamps with this, you might have to push just a little bit harder, not super, super hard, but maybe just a little bit more, or spend a little bit more time making sure that you get good ink coverage on your stamp, just because it's not squishy like the foam pads. So that's the Memento ink pad. And then the fourth type of ink pad I want to show you really quick is a Stays-On ink pad. This is a solvent ink pad, and it is permanent. It's really good for doing watercoloring with because it definitely will not run when it gets wet. Like the Memento ink pad, it is a felt or linen pad. And again, you just have to use a little bit more care when you're inking it up to make sure that you have good ink coverage on it. Because it's solvent based and that solvent is going to dry faster, it does have this little plastic cover inside there to help keep it from drying out too quickly. So those are your basic ink pads. When you're first starting, you really probably want to start with this classic Stampin' Pad or the black Memento pad too. That's a really good one. So we covered stamps, ink, and now let's talk about paper. Stampin' Up! Offers 8.5 by 11 paper. They also have some 12 by 12 paper, but primarily 8.5 by 11 paper, and it comes in two different types of paper. So the first one is the white, the Whisper White and Vanilla cardstock. This cardstock is ultra smooth. That means that when you feel it, it's got a really, really smooth surface. So when you go to stamp on it, it's going to give you nice, clean, crisp images. Okay, but it's a little bit lighter weight than the colored cardstock just because of that smoothness. Stampin' Up! Also has colored cardstock. This is an example of some of the colored cardstock. And it's not smooth like the Whisper White or Very Vanilla. It's just a regular cardstock. It's a nice heavy cardstock. It is colored all the way through, no white on the inside. And it's just really nice cardstock. Basic, what you need for stamping. What's really nice about Stampin' Up! And one of the things that they have always been known for is their color coordination. So this means that they carry ink and paper in their colors. They have 4 color families, as they call them. The brights, the subtles, the regals, and the neutrals. And in those color families, they have 10 different colors in each one. And in each of those, they have ink pads and paper. Each year, they also come out with a set of 5 ink colors that are available for 2 years. So that means at any time, there are 10 different ink colors that are limited availability colors. And those also come in ink and cardstock. You'll notice here I have a Granny Apple Green piece of cardstock, and that matches my Granny Apple Green ink pad. So really nice. The colors work really well together, and you don't have to try to match up your colors. You know they're going to work together. They also often will carry a variety of accessories that will be in these same colors, so you know right away when you're putting a project together that everything's going to match. It really, truly is one of the greatest things about Stampin' Up! Gone over the basics of stamps, ink, and paper. Let's make a really quick and easy card. Whether this is your first card or your 100th card, it's still a really fun, easy card to make for any occasions because you can switch out the sentiment. So this is what it's going to look like. Let's set that aside and get started. For this project, I'm going to pull out 4 different colors: Mango Melody, Coastal Cabana, Granny Apple Green, and Soft Suede. I have 2 pieces of cardstock. I have a piece of very vanilla cardstock that has been cut to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And then I have a piece of Granny Apple Green cardstock that is basically just an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock cut in half. So it is 8.5 by 11 by 5 1/2. And then I've scored it right down the middle at 4 1/4 inches. I'm just going to take this and fold it to create my card base. Just give that a nice crease, and that just makes my card base. I'm going to go ahead and set that aside for a moment because we're not going to need it again until the end. Oftentimes when I stamp at home, I have multiple clear blocks. This way I can take stamps and I can put different stamps on each block and be able to switch back and forth really super easy, quick. But for this project, or I should say sometimes when you first start stamping, you're not going to have a whole bunch of blocks, right? You're maybe going to have 1 block. It's really good. You can start with a C block or a D block. These are good basic sizes that work with a lot of our stamps. For this project, I am just going to use a C block. So you're going to see me cleaning and switching stamps a whole lot because I just wanted to show you how you could just use 1 block to make your whole project. For this project, we're using the Check You Out stamp set that I looked at earlier. I love this stamp set for beginning stampers for a couple of reasons. One, it's a bold image stamp. That means that you can stamp it in different colors ink, stamp it on your paper, and be good to go. You don't have to do any coloring, nothing. It's super quick and easy, nothing hard to do. The other reason is that it has a variety of sentiments. You can see it says congratulations, thank you, happy birthday. So your general occasions that you have probably most often. It also has things like just a little note, if you're just sending a note card to a friend, just checking on you, maybe if somebody's having a hard day, you want to send them a card, starting a new chapter, or check you out. So some great sayings that work for a variety of occasions. I'm going to go ahead and open up the case and pull out the stamps that are inside. Like I said with the Photopolymer stamp sets, there is this 2 layers of plastic. I'm going to just pull off the thinner layer of plastic that's on top and set that aside for the moment, just to make it easier to get the stamps off and on. I'm going to start by pulling off this solid book, and I'm going to put that on my clear block. Take my Granny Apple Green ink. Remember to open it. I find that finger holds, pull it, slide it back. So on my very vanilla cardstock, I'm going to ink up my stamp. When I go to ink up the stamp, I just want to tap lightly a number of times, make sure I have some good coverage, and then stamp it right on my paper. Apply even pressure. When you're doing this, try not to, rock the block down, especially when you're using a block that's a lot bigger than your stamp, because you can see sometimes I have a little bit of ink right there. You could get some of that ink on your paper if you're not just a little bit careful. I'm going to clean my stamp now. I have a Stampin' Chamois. This looks really gross, but it's really not dirty. I rinse this out all the time. So it's clean. It's just stained. It's not going to affect your stamp at all. It's still going to clean your stamp really easily. And this is just in water, quick, easy. If you don't have this, you can run your stamps under water. You could take some paper towel and get those damp and then just tap it on there. That's what I used to do when I first started stamping. You could also use alcohol-free baby wipes if you wanted to wipe off your stamps. Anything like that is going to get your stamp clean. So I'm just going to peel that off. And then I'm going to switch books, put that book back. And I'm going to pull off this book. Put it on my stamp. And now I'm going to grab my Coastal Cabana stamp pad. Look for that finger hold. Pop it up, flip it over, slide it back. Just stamp that up, tap it lightly a bunch of times. The nice thing about the clear blocks is you can see through them. So I can see the bottom of my stamp and the top of my stamped image. So I can get those books one right on top of the other really easily. Again, just wipe that on my chamois. Oh, I'm going to leave that book there because I'm actually going to use it again. I'm going to close up my Coastal Cabana ink pad, set that aside, grab my Mango Melody ink pad, finger holds, up, over, slide, and once again, tap that a bunch of times lightly, get good coverage, and then straight down, lift up, and I have 3 books stamped right on top of each other. Clean that stamp off, put it away. I'm going to go ahead and close up my Mango Melody ink pad, put it away. And now I'm going to grab that owl out of that stamp set. I'm going to put him right on my clear block. And I'm going to stamp the owl with the soft suede ink. Again, find the finger hold, up, over, slide. When you first get your ink pads, they are going to be a little bit sticky. They don't open quite as well, but after you use them a number of times, they're going to slide a lot easier. Make sure his feet are on top of that book by looking through your clear block. Because it is a bolder image, you want to make sure that you're getting firm pressure evenly across the stamp. So just push down firmly, lift up, and you get a nice image of your owl. Clean your stamp again. Peel it off. Put it back on that plastic. And now, one of the really awesome things about the stamp set is there's these little glasses over here that you can put on the owl. So I'm going to put those on my ink, on my clear block. I'm going to grab my Granny Apple Green ink. Tap, tap, tap. And because the polymer stamps are clear, you can see through them. So I can see where the little owl's eyes are and where his nose is. And I can get those glasses kind of lined up nicely on his face. Clean my stamp again, pull off the glasses, and now I'm going to reach for my sentiment that says congratulations. With the photopolymer stamps, they are super bendy, so it's really easy when you're putting it on to get it like sideways, right? Like that, which maybe you want. That would be a fun little image to stamp, right? Your congratulations would be sideways. But for this card, I want the congratulations to be straight. So what I like to do when that's the case is I just like to take it and just drop it face down on my table or on my piece of cardstock or whatever. This way the stamp is kind of at rest, so it goes back to its natural straight state. And then I'm going to put my clear block right on top of it. So the stamp might not be straight on the clear block. That usually doesn't happen, but at least that stamp is probably pretty straight. The words are pretty straight and in the stamp itself as far as that goes. I'm going to grab my soft suede ink again. Tap, tap, tap. You really want to make sure you do that light because these letters are so thin. If you get too much ink, it'll get really blobby. And now I'm going to try to get this as straight as I can on my paper. And there you go. Really easy image. I'm just going to close up my ink pads because if I don't, I will undoubtedly end up getting my card in the ink. So close those up. I'm going to grab that Granny Apple Green card base that we made earlier. Take my stamped image that I have now. I'm going to take some liquid glue And I am just going to put a very thin layer on the back of that piece of cardstock. Oops. And then adhere that to my Granny Apple Green card base. Because it's liquid glue, you do get a little bit of wiggle room. You can slide it around just a little bit if get it in the right spot. And there you go, really quick, easy card that you can make. You could stop right there. Personally, I like to add just a little bit of bling to every card. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab the Gingham Gala adhesive back sequins. These come in 4 different colors. And what's really nice about these, and what's really great if you're first starting out, is they're super easy to use because they have adhesive already on the back of them. So you just have to peel them off and stick them. So I'm just going to peel it and stick it right where I want it on my card. When I'm putting any sort of little dot, little bling like this, I like to use odd numbers. And you'll notice the books, I put 3 books. For some reason, odd numbers always look more pleasing to the eye than even numbers. So I'm just going to put 3 of these on here. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in a triangle. So just like that, a little bit of bling on your card. Quick, easy, simple card, all ready for you to mail out to somebody who had some sort of exciting event go on. So this card was really easy to make. I hope that I've helped you figure out how to do rubber stamping, how to get started. If you have any questions or you need more help getting started, I would love to help you with that. Just, send me an email, drop me a comment on this video. Let me know what your questions are. Let me know how I can help you get started with stamping. Thank you again for joining me today, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye-bye.